No.
I like it. You know what? Every once in a while, we need a wild card. Just switch it up.
Don't look up now, but the Denver Nuggets and Jamal Murray just tied the series. And what?
Oh my goodness, yeah, that's a thing. Damn, the Clippers are imploding. But anyway, this is the Leg Kick Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Asiffo. Joined with me, my hatted friend, in a very nice room, is David.
This is a real room. Also, this is a real 100% original Raptors fitted. Or Snapback, whatever.
They kind of disappoint our souls, and Pascal Siakam apparently is going to be deported soon.
Yeah, I mean the NBA season's over, so whatever. So I always just rep my Raptors. That's
Thank you, Internet, for the entertaining Pascal Siakam memes.
There's one I gotta send you guys in the group later. But anyway, joined to me is a man with white skin and white headphones.
No, we're bleeping that one out.
White skin and white head. Wow, I do even if I'm satirizing you guys, I think I do a genuinely hard job, good job of introducing you all. I'm just the white skin, white headphones guys. Thanks, Mike. Thanks. And sitting below me is a guy with black skin and a black chair. Everybody, Michael Asiffo. What's? Listen.
No.
If you're wondering why we didn't put a preview out for this UFC card and the Bellator cards, there's a bit. We had a bit of an obligation to attend to. We were building wells in Nigeria. The good people of Nigeria have been without clean drinking water in certain rural districts outside of the capital, and Nigeria. David, shut up. And we were helping to build them wells out of the goodness of our heart. So don't hate.
Okay, no. So there's our white skin, white headphone analyst, Stefano.
Call me the white guilt. That's my new
white blur. White blur.
And also the man, myth, and legend to the upper right corner of my screen.
It's different for all of us, Mike. Okay.
Yeah, it is. But
wait, I get white skin and white headphones.
Yeah, really,
man, myth, and legend. Dude, what the hell?
I had to be nice because you guys were like
there's
why
nepotism on this podcast.
Listen,
I don't like this. I don't like nepotism.
As the man who's kind of sort of the de facto boss of this, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want HR coming after me. So like,
I'm filing.
I'm not gonna lie.
You know what? I support that HR claim. Yeah, that was reverse racism. Well, you need to apologize to Stefano.
David, there's no such thing as reverse racism.
Right.
It's just racism. It's just racism. So, with that being said, shall we get into the news?
Yeah. Let's see. So I'll just talk about kind of the things, the happenings on in the UFC. Nick Diaz says he wants to. Not Nate. Nick Diaz says he wants to come back.
Not only does he say he want to come back, he's dropped to 165. It's not 165 pounds. Around 175 pounds, I think. Like he's walking around very low. He looks shredded. He looks good. This could be another example of Nick Diaz cries wolf, or this could be. I heard talks about a Nick Diaz versus Dan Hardy comeback.
No.
Spicy. Let's do it. They both want to make a comeback. UFC. Let's get it. The volume pressure fighter with great jiu-jitsu against the man with the banging left hand. I'm about it.
And the man who also has a blood disease. Like, remember?
Dan Hardy?
Yeah, he has a blood condition.
Yeah, but it was a super rare. I think it was inconsequential. I don't think it actually had any. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I feel like I'd be excited for this fight. No disrespect, maybe like 10 years ago. But I think at this stage, perhaps there's some other fights in the UFC that I'm more interested in seeing. I don't know if I would even watch this on Bellator, you know what I mean? Or
they're not that far gone. We're not talking about 50-year-old Royce Gracie here. Hey, David, what's one of the rules of the leg kick? We don't talk shit about Dan Hardy.
That's so true. That's so true. Dan Hardy's a legend. But like, with all due respect, I actually think it's probably best he stays retired.
It's a tad too late.
Not like I don't want to say too late or anything. I just feel like, he has a great legacy as is, right? So like,
I agree. And you know how I generally feel about old legends fighting and coming back past their prime.
Yeah.
If either of them wants to step up into the contendership queue and make a run at a title, I would be against it. But if they want to come back for a one-off against each other for nostalgia's sake,
sure,
I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
Okay.
But then we get mad at Mike Tyson trying that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mike Tyson is 50 years old.
That is
He's facing another 50-year-old in an exhibition match with headgear. Like, we can't play this. We can't play this hypocrisy game.
I also remember.
I don't want to see a 40-year-old fight.
Like, that's really
they're a 1-to-1 comparison.
But also, just quickly on Mike Tyson, notice how he's moved that fight to Thanksgiving now, or like in November, after scheduling it initially, like I think it was this weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. That's apparently Roy.
Did you say on Joe Rogan that it was because of a like television like viewership projections or something like that?
I mean, I don't know what it is, but Roy doesn't want to fight now. Like, he wants to fight in.
Is that what Roy Jones had, or?
It's a report that allegedly Roy doesn't want to fight in September. He wants to fight in October.
Because of the viewership.
I don't even know if it's because of the viewership. I just know that's what people
I have a really good idea. I know a good time window where they could postpone this fight to get it optimal views, and it'd be in the best interest of both participants. Let's postpone it somewhere in between never and never.
I thought you were going to say something like a time machine and like 1999.
No, just never. Let's go with never.
No, I'm good with. But shouts out to these legends though, and that's probably how I feel about Dan Hardy versus who's coming back again. Sorry,
Nick
Diaz. Put some respect on him.
I am very honestly, with all due respect, are you guys excited for a Nate Diaz fight next?
I am less excited for Nate Diaz than for Nick, because Nate has had by far the harder drop off. It seems like he's been stylistically figured out, and he's a lot longer in the tooth. Nick Diaz really didn't have that drop off. He had guys somewhat figure him out, but...
Do you remember his last interview with Ariel Helwani?
Yeah.
Well, at least, but the thing about Nick is at least he's semi-active. Sorry, Nate is at least he's semi-active. Nick has been just kind of drinking all the time, and
I don't want to. Hey, I don't. There's nothing wrong with drinking and partying. I'm all for that. But
not when you want to fight dogs.
Not when you want to be a conditioned champion. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's you got to.
You tell John Jones that, okay?
Hey, not everyone's a John Jones.
Nick and Nate Diaz clearly think that they are. So,
well,
whatever works for you works for you. So I don't want to criticize him for being who he is. I just think it's been kind of, to your point, it's been too long. It's been too long.
Fair enough. Really quickly, another piece of news. I wanted to touch on the card next weekend because sneakily the UFC announced a couple of matchups for this one in the middle of the week, and they're.
We're doing a preview for that, right?
Yeah, we're going to do a preview for this one for sure. This isn't no Waterson Hill. Covington Woodley in the main event. Then we've got
Sorry. Who?
I said Waterson Hill.
No. After that.
Covington Woodley.
It's Covington. Covington. Okay?
No, it's Cubby Covington. What are you talking about, Mike?
I don't know why that's so funny, but keep it moving.
Anyways, next, Cowboy Cerrone versus Nico Price in a banger. Nico Price coming off of a very violent, I think it was the Vicente Luque fight. I don't know how he's doing it so quickly. Then we have Khamzat Chimaev versus Gerald Meerschaert. Let's see how high this kid's ceiling can go. This is a big step up in competition. Next, Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern versus Randa Marcos. And then Ryan Spann versus Johnny Walker. I'm about it. And then, finally, Kevin Holland versus Darren Stewart in a beautiful 185 prospect matchup. I'm excited too. I'm okay if you guys want to keep it moving and don't want to go into too much detail about this one.
I want to talk about Chimaev a little bit because
Can we reserve that for next week because we have so much to get into?
Yeah,
That's fair.
we have a whole preview.
That's fair.
Yeah.
We're not even done matchups, man.
All right.
Like
fair
announcements.
enough.
Real quick, Bellator. Okay, this is big news, and I want to get everyone's take on this because I'm genuinely curious. So France had a long time ban on MMA. It was completely illegal. They lifted it, and Bellator is the first ones to lift the curtain. We've got Czech Congo versus Timothy Johnson 2 in the main event, and then we have Michael Venom Page against somebody I've never heard of.
Again.
We love
Michael Van Page versus a Target sales representative.
Oh my God, no!
8-0.
Shouts out to that guy.
He's 8-0, so there's that. I haven't really seen his fights, but I mean, Bellator level of efforts. Mind you, I'm happy for MMA is coming to France.
Yeah.
Yeah, shouts out to actually not shouts out to France, but shouts out to Czech.
Not shouts out to France. David throwing shade at the nation of France.
Not shouts out to France, or Netherlands, or Belgium, but anyway, or England.
Hold on, it's almost like Belgium did something unforgivable in the
Oh
Congo.
my goodness, yeah.
I
Anyways,
think it's great for France, but I mean, I could probably care less about who's fighting on this card. But if you wanna,
What are you talking about? Czech Congo's a legend. I want to see
Czech Congo,
Czech
man.
Congo's
That's what I wanted
I
to
want to
see.
see Czech Congo do his thing. I want to see Czech Congo.
if you could let me finish, then you would find out what I was gonna say.
Oh,
Is that two people are gonna go out there and compete and put their hearts out on the line, their bodies and their lives out on the line, and they've worked at it. I'm willing to watch it, but I mean, I don't know who's on this card really. So I mean, it's great for France, but like I said, I'm interested in it, but I could care less. So
that's very honest,
buddy.
Yeah. My hope is that something similar will happen to France that happened to Ireland with Bellator, because Bellator seems to be focused on building up these small European markets, and a lot of talent's kind of been produced from that. From France already, we've got Czech Congo, we've got what's his name? Francis Ngannou, obviously.
Cyril Gane.
Cyril Gane.
I was gonna say that hopefully this is kind of paving the pathway to like a USC France event, and
Taylor Lapulus. Don't forget him. Sign him back to the UFC. He never should have been cut to place.
No, but I will say though. Sorry, David.
No, go on. Sorry.
No, I will say though, like Bellator, in terms of a marketing strategy, is doing something very smart here, where they've kind of conceded that the UFC is going to rule the USA, right? They're going to rule Brazil, and they've probably got Canada, right? They're like, all right, you take the Americas, and we're going to take Europe.
I don't know why Bellator thinks the UFC probably has Canada, because there's really only like 4-5 Canadian shows a year, maybe 3, maybe I can think of.
You
know
what I think it is? The pay-per-view market.
For whatever reason, it's just really hard to get a MMA event in Canada, and the UFC seems to be the only one who's able to do it with regularity. So I would kind of hazard to guess that like Bella's probably all right. Take the Americas. You take the Americas. We'll get Europe, right? And I think that's a smart way to go about it.
I'd also say that
it's interesting. That's why I'm thinking. I think it's smart from a market.
Yeah, the Americas are on a similar time zone, so the UFC their main money making dynamic is off of pay-per-views. Doesn't really fly for Europe. That's why all the cards in Europe are streamed on free TV, because nobody's going to buy a pay-per-view at like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. So Bellator, because their main revenue stream isn't necessarily pay-per-views, I don't believe they can put on shows in Europe and still make money off of the gate in other ways. So, yeah, it's an inroads. It's like the UFC will always be there in Europe, but they're not necessarily going to dominate because they're not going to bring their bigger stars over.
I mean, they do. there are quite a few European stars in the UFC.
I agree. That's not what I was saying. I just mean they're not going to bring their bigger stars over for the European cards in the UFC.
Actually, I don't know because even like it wasn't that long ago we had oh my goodness, I'm struggling for names right now, but we had what's that Danish guy that fought or Jack Manson? He fought, I think it wasn't Cannonier, or it might have been Cannonier. Oh my goodness.
Are you talking about Jack Hermanson?
Yeah, I am talking about Jack Hermanson, but
He
I
fought
feel like
Calvin Gastelum.
yeah, in Europe, like they do sometimes when they want to make a star in Europe, like they do have that kind of main event having a big European fighter. And that's a useful thing to have. Even like Darren Till had that big fight against Cowboy Cerrone, for example, in England as well. So it's something that they do kind of often. I just think I don't know. I really don't have a thought. That's just what I think.
That's fair. Those are some solid matchups that I kind of overlooked. Next fight announcement: Carla Esparza versus Amanda Ribas.
Did you say next announcement?
Fight announcement, yeah.
Oh man, okay.
Then Cyborg has a fight against like a 9-5 opponent in Bellator. So I'm just mentioning that because Chris Cyborg, pioneer of women's MMA,
yes,
legend, and if she can still keep doing the damn thing and get fights, good for her. I think this is kind of Mike, as I was saying, Cyborg booked against a 9-4 opponents that I haven't heard of previously.
Wonderful. And
then finally, this is one piece of news I wanted to get into. So there's two Bellator, and I know we've been lingering on Bellator for a while, but for a while their 170 division was looking like it was strong, even able to compete with the UFC's. But two announcements came out this week. Number one, John Fitch is retired with his loss to Neiman Gracie. Number two, Douglas Lima vacating his welterweight belt and going up to 185 to challenge Gegard Mousasi for the 185-pound title. So that's an interesting fight matchup, but it looks to me like Bellator's 170 division might be collapsing. Not collapsing, but it's not exactly having the same depth as it does before. Remember, Rory McDonald also left Bellator for PFL earlier this year. So who's left?
Bruce has kind of declined as well, which is interesting. He lost by heel hook earlier tonight. Last 2 nights ago. So you're starting to see a lot of guys. They still have that gentleman, what's his name, Jason Jackson.
Jackson, and they've still got MVP, obviously, but
yeah.
I like MVP.
I like him too.
Yeah. My only thing with MVP is that, if I'm not mistaken, he has a really flashy style, and I think he's like in his early 30s, so he's getting to that point where if he is going to make the jump, like he needs to make the jump, because if he stays in Bellator, I'm not sure he's going to transcend as much as he wants to, because like with his fight style and his old brand, like he wants to be like a household name. That's his whole thing. So
my whole thing with MVP is, how good is MVP really? Because the 2 fights that he's had to kind of prove, hey, I can do it against guys, 2 is he has a fight against Paul Daly, and Paul Daly came with an excellent game plan. I'm not going to lie to you. He came with a great game
won that
plan.
fight.
Huh?
Arguably won that fight.
Heated arguments, but yeah, sure.
But he came in with a great big game plan, but MVP didn't impress. And then against Douglas Lima, now granted, MVP was starting to find his range, but one hard kick and one hard punch later, and he's in the shadow realm. So
I think I liked what MVP was doing in that fight up until that point. Yeah. I thought he made a good account of himself, and that makes it even more maddening that Bellator continues to match him against relative nobodies when, as David said, he's not in the twilight of his career, but it's time to make a name for yourself.
Yeah, it's just that for me, it's like these are 2 opportunities you've had to kind of these are proven fights. These are proven fights, and he hasn't exactly proven, So I think it's time to have that discussion of like, how good is he really? Like, he's got great style. He's got a lot of highlight reel knockouts that ESPN will play, and you'll get all these sports channels, doing top 10 lists about, but you're not gonna necessarily win the big one. If you keep fighting, these unknown guys, and it's a tough discussion to have, but I think it's uncomfortable, but we got to have that conversation of, is MVP really good at MMA?
Hilarious. What I want to see is an MVP versus Raymond Daniels fight. Give us that, and let him go.
I'm
let
in.
him go to the UFC and let's see what he can do. But I actually don't like his chances against a lot of the UFC because I don't think they would let him do a lot of the things he does
Yeah,
in the Bellator cage. But yeah,
especially if you can be out grappled by Paul Daly,
yeah,
that
that's gonna be
really doesn't
yeah,
bode well for you.
yeah.
You know, not saying that his striking isn't, he's clearly quite a good counter fighter. Really good at that leap back counter kind of Shotokan style.
I also think just quickly, Stefano, I just want to say I think it's like a legitimate like business strategy to have a fighter who might not necessarily be, I don't want to say elite because he does have elite skills, but might not be able to beat like the best of the best, but is a draw, and if you put them up against certain kinds of fighters, will give you some exciting highlights. And like rather than trying to make them something that they're not, like every once in a while you put them out against, you just let them do what they do, you know what I mean? And that's kind of how their career is going to go, rather than making this guy get unnecessarily grappled to death by like some Olympian wrestler. I mean, who wants to see that, right?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It is a legitimate business strategy for sure.
Fair enough. I will say the UFC used to have something called you remember the MMA middle class, like, so to speak, where they had guys who weren't necessarily gonna win championships, but they were popular guys. They came out and fought, and they were fun to watch.
They still do.
I.e. your Chris Liebens, your Sexyama,
your Guidas.
Yeah, right.
We just had a
Sanchez.
Waterson Hill card. Like we still have the MMA middle class.
Wait, hold on.
Not like,
Waterson and Angela.
I would say Waterson and Hill are still in contention for a title.
Sure.
A couple wins away. That being the main difference, but I agree with you. It's a product of a bygone era that I kind of miss, because sometimes you just want to see an interesting fight, regardless of title implications. Dan Hardy, Nick Diaz.
Yeah, I will say that is something that is a little bit frustrating in the UFC coverage compared to like ONE FC, in that everything seems to be focused more on the road to the championship as opposed to just like, I don't want to say the inherent value of the fight or the matchup or anything like that. It's usually like the commentators might even be really pumped about the matchup, but usually it's all like, oh, what's the title implications? And now we're getting to the point where fighters don't even want to take fights because the rankings don't make any sense, when it really should be ideally based on like matchup and proving what you can do ideally.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyway,
one final announcement I wanted to get into. After his barn burner of a fight last weekend with a relative unknown, who actually turned out to be I forget the guy's name even, but because he was a late minute replacement. But Ricardo Lamas is retired.
Yeah.
And this one really tugged at the heartstrings for me because he's an interesting fighter. He went out on a win, which is always good, but you have to wonder what the decision-making process is here. Is he under a lot of duress or injuries or what have you? But thank you for a wonderful career. Thank you for providing us with some interesting guard play in MMA, and the leg kick salutes you.
Yeah, shout out Ricardo Lamas. Great fighter.
Great fighter. I mean, I'll tell you why I think he retired. I think he took a look at tea leaves, and it's sad because I don't necessarily...
Sorry,
I don't necessarily think this is the case. I think he ran into a good fighter, but I think he thinks... Remember when Mike Tyson was facing Danny McBride, and Danny McBride beat the brakes off of him, and he was like, if I can't beat this caliber of fighter, I'm out. Mm-hmm. Right? I think that's what Ricardo Lamas is kind of doing. Is like, if I'm having such a tough time against, a guy, I think that he can be good, but he's trying to say, if I'm having a tough time against this caliber of a fighter, like, what am I going to do against so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so? And I don't want to go down that road. So, which I think more guys should do for the record.
That's the reason. It's probably smarter than trying to fight and take all that brain damage when you're really not, primed to compete at that level. Or if you're not ready to compete at that level, sometimes it's not any physical attributes, it's just mental.
Absolutely.
That
That's the
makes
kind of
sense.
calculus I'd like to see a lot more fighters making, especially
Yeah.
big stars.
Yeah. Like I think Ricardo Lamas, is deciding to retire 2 fights early rather than 2 fights too late, and I applaud that.
Yeah. Smart. He's got nothing to prove, really. I mean, what's he gonna do? Make another run at the title?
Yeah, probably not.
Uh,
Okay, gentlemen. First of all, I just want to say that the Leg Kick Podcast is brought to you by excellent facial hair. Woo! Oh my God, guys, we're looking hot. What are we, 410s over here? Does that make us
man.
40?
No,
Look,
I can't.
Excellent facial
I
hair.
can't grow facial hair to save my life.
Jeremy, you stop talking right now. That mustache is shades of Ron Jeremy. Okay, you're Jeremy Ron.
Raj,
Jeremy Ron Asiffo.
wait, hold on. Is that the porn star?
no.
That is the porn star. David's like,
But
no,
you do-
hilarious. We can't say porn on the podcast.
No, it's not that. It's that like he's actually in a lot of hot water right now. Like there's like multiple counts of sexual assault.
Oh, right. I heard about that. Yeah.
I know that.
So maybe not a good way to reference a porn star on this podcast.
How about
David, are
Steve
you?
McQueen? Steve McQueen. You got the Steve McQueen going on.
All right, I'll take that.
Steve McQueen,
David,
please
are you
don't
both
tell me
gonna-
did anything messed up in the
Are you
show.
going to talk about ONE FC?
Yeah, I could do a quick one FC.
After David goes ONE FC, I just want to quickly talk about the Canadian guy who fought in the top rank main event boxing match this last night.
Why not?
Resident
Why
ONE
not?
FC correspondent.
Yes,
David
South
Agbaire.
Asian correspondent. So yeah, this weekend was your ONE FC. I think it was New Breed 2. The names are always really funny, but shouts out to ONE FC, man. I'm actually having a really good time. But also, not shout out to their commentator. I don't know his name. I need to pay attention next time. But
Mitch
like,
Gilson, the young guy, right?
Pardon?
Is it the young guy or is it the big kabosh? That guy?
The main guy,
Is it the guy? Is it the
the
There's two
play-by-play
guys.
guy.
the playback? Okay, yeah. So he's the guy who's like, beautiful knockout, the big
Yeah,
kabosh.
that
That guy.
guy.
Yeah. That's Michael Chavallo.
Not shout out to him. Trash.
What do you do?
I mean, let me not say trash because it's probably harder to do in real life. But like, man, not a fan. Not a fan.
Dude, he used to be a legend, and then slowly over the years, he's kind of become a satire of himself.
He makes the weirdest rap references. Oh, he leans back like Fat Joe. Like, you can't use that like in multiple fights, you know? But whatever. Like, shout out to him.
You know what the weirdest one he said was once? He was like, he said something, it just didn't work. He said something about Shin Yaoki. He's like, he's so mean, he'll call, what's it called when you always think you have a disease?
Hypochondriac.
Yeah, it was in the middle of a fight. It had nothing to do with what was going on. He's like, Shin Yaoki's so mean, he'll send a hypochondriac a get well soon card. I'm like, dude.
I'm sorry.
Why?
That's absolutely hilarious.
It's so divorced from
Not a fan,
anything
man.
going on in the fight.
Not a fan, man. But shouts out to him though, or not shouts out. I'm not sure anymore.
Shouts into him.
Yeah, man. He's killing me. He kills me when I watch that stuff. Anyway, main card we had, or main event was Clubber Clancy versus Pongsery. Good fight. Irish dude, WBO Muay Thai champion. First of all, Irish Muay Thai champion. How about that? Apparently, he'd never done like a second of martial arts up until he was like 21. Walked into a gym, trying to do like some fitness kickboxing class. 2 years later, he's the like Irish world champion. Or sorry,
Wow.
So, man, this dude is super nasty, and he's actually really technical, which is kind of surprising compared to like he doesn't do. You would think his physical attributes would be what he relies on, and you know he has the stereotypical physical attributes of a European fighter of lots of stamina, lots of heart.
Wait,
lots of
hold
grit.
on. This
What?
sounds like race realism to me.
What?
Hold on a second.
Stereotypical
Hold on.
attributes.
But when
of a
UFC
European-
fighters do it to, but when UFC fans do it to black MMA fighters, it's all of a sudden A-OK.
Oh, you got
Get out
Michael
of here, David. Continue.
Man, European fighters.
Hold on. What are you talking about?
British fighters are known for their stamina and
Like
their
it's
grit.
not like Joe Rogan says explosive about every single black fighter that steps into the ring. Okay? Let's be honest.
The power.
Hey, shouts out to Jack Slacky coined the term black explosive as a joke.
It's like how they talk about black quarterbacks. Oh, he's really athletic. He's really talented.
He's a total package.
Like you could get the most athletic white guy MMA fighter ever, who all he does is just explode. The most you'll be compared to is like Michael Bisping.
Hilarious.
Yeah, they'll be like a
really
hard-nosed
cerebral.
white blue-collar grinder. Sorry, David. Please continue. We're talking about this Irish Muay Thai champion.
No, but he was really good.
Facial attributes.
No. What really impressed me was his punching combinations. For somebody who started in their 20s, like it was really impressive how like he was able to like land a lot of combinations against a seasoned Thai pro. I last watched Pong Sri's fight against I think it was like Pechmorica or whatever. And Pechmorica dominated Pong Sri because he was just like a taller, more like well-rounded fighter. Pong Sri is more of like a puncher. And Clubber Clancy is more of a puncher, but at the same time, like it was interesting to watch, European versus Thai.
Oh yeah,
style.
one note about this fight. Sorry to cut you off, but Pong Sri actually moved down in weight for this one after that Pechmorica fight, where he was hilariously undersized. So
Yeah,
it was a pretty.
That's a rough fight to be undersized, and Pechmore caught one of the best in the world. Last man to beat Senchai, I think.
True.
Sorry, give me 1 second, guys.
I didn't even know that, but no, it was really good. The Clubber Clancy, like he really put on like a really good account for himself, and I was personally super impressed. Next fight that I found really interesting was the Fatty Khalid versus Superlek fight. My God, Fatty Khalid lost that fight, but in my opinion, he won that fight. His combos were crazy. I think that the turnaround round was the second round. I think that was kind of what went to Superlek, and depending on how you see that round is who you think won that fight. But in my opinion, I thought Fatty Khalid dominated most of the first part of the second round, and Superlek dominated the third round pretty easily, in my opinion. But still, once again,
it's interesting the judging in one championship, because you could clearly tell that at least in spirit they favor that later round, man. Like
I know, and it makes no sense. And I even heard the commentator say like, oh, it's like they favored the hard hitting in that third round of Superlek versus Fatty Khalid, and I'm like, wait, no, we're still using the 10-point must system, right? Like surely like he won those first two rounds, he should those were 10-9 rounds, and even if he lost 10-8 like in that second round, like unless my math is off, like I don't know, man. That was a weird.
I mean, maybe they thought he won the second round, and I could be all wrong, but they did the same thing with Stamp and Alicia Rodriguez, and I think it's weird seeing a lot of Thai, because they are they're based in Singapore, but they do have a lot of Thai influence. It is
they were fighting in Bangkok.
Yeah, they were fighting in Bangkok, right? And so you tend to see a lot of judges who still have that Thai mindset of the later rounds matter more, right? Even in spirit, you start to see a lot of these guys, and that's the thing. You're gonna hear people go robbery. No, it's not robbery. It's the philosophy of people there. It's off, and
I mean, I don't want to be too harsh, because at the end of the day, it was a super duper close fight. I mean, we're talking about
I'm definitely not trying to be mean about what I'm saying. I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm just saying it to say the cultural difference, right? Because people are going to watch this fight and think that it's a robbery because they don't understand the culture, right?
Yeah.
But as a guy who's done Muay Thai fights, watched Muay Thai fights, seeing kind of how they like to do, operate there in terms of their judging, I kind of understand it.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, 10-point must system. So if you say it's one thing, you can't judge it as something else, in my opinion. This is confusing for the viewer. As a viewer, as a novice in Muay Thai, just even in viewing Muay Thai, it was interesting to me because I thought Fatty Khalid won that fight. His hands were so quick, it's ridiculous. But what was also ridiculous was how wild he was throwing, but like in a refined, controlled manner. It was a really interesting fight because usually, Muay Thai guys are fairly controlled, but Fatty Khalid was like, hands down swinging. But I guess it was a kickboxing fight, which made it a little bit easier because he knew he didn't have to worry about elbows or anything like that. But also, shouts out to Superleg, who did what he had to do. My other point I wanted to make about this Fatty Khalid fight, Morocco, man.
Sorry, guys.
Shouts out to Morocco.
Wait, Morocco? What are we talking about?
Moroccans, they can fight. Like,
are we talking about the co-main event on the UFC card?
No, we're still on the ONE FC fight. Although I think he was Tunisian.
No, he was Moroccan as well.
There you go. That was going to be one of my points. Moroccan fighters can really, really fight. Like, they're some of the toughest, like, strikers that I've seen, like, consistently in any kind of discipline. So I was really, really impressed.
How about Badr Hari? I think Badr Hari is originally from Morocco.
Yeah, man. No, yeah, I think so, actually. There's
best kickboxer in the world.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, Badr Hari, Moroccan Dutch. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, then once you start doing that Moroccan Dutch mix, then you're running into a real problem. Or Moroccan friends, like you're running into a real problem.
Cut it. We can't have that getting out.
Really?
They'll be super. No. People will start. Too many Moroccan, Dutch, Moroccan, French people will get into MMA, and then I'll have no chance of winning any more titles.
No, man. Like they're
just gonna whoop my ass.
They're actually a serious problem. So shouts out to Morocco. And then last thing I want to talk about on the ONE FC, just really, really quickly. 16-year-old Supergirl versus Wonder Girl. versus Wonder Girl. But it might as well have been against Supergirl versus Wonder Boy. Did you see that hype video for that fight, man? Like, they didn't talk about the other girl, like, once. And shouts out to that other girl. But, like, man, it was... First of all, Supergirl is 16 years old, and she fought, I think it was, like, Alicia Rodriguez, something like that. I can't remember her name. I'm sorry, young lady. She was 24. My question to you, do you think that fight would have been allowed in anywhere except Thailand?
You can't go pro.
Hell no.
16. You can't go pro at 16. I think about anywhere else in the world that has regulatory bodies overseeing fights. It's just
crazy. How that was sanctioned is crazy.
Because in Thailand, the adult age, actually the age to drink is 16 as well. Believe it or not. So, like,
I believe it. I mean, that's one thing.
It's a cultural difference, and you might not agree with it, like, you know what I'm saying, and I might not agree with it, which I don't, for the record. In fact, I think the age should be higher than 18 to fight, but that's another story for another time, right? As much as we don't like it, it's the culture there. The culture is different, and because of the cultural differences, you tend to see a lot of things that seem weird to us, but,
And that was another thing. It was that she was so much more seasoned than the other lady for being a 16-year-old. I mean, I get it. If I'm not mistaken, her dad was a championship fighter. Her sister is a two-time, like, Muay Thai or three-time Muay Thai champion. It's Wonder Girl. I mean, like, she's from a family of fighters. So she just seemed way more seasoned, way more composed. She was super long, super lengthy, still only 16. So, I mean, she smoked that other girl in like a minute, with all due respect to that other girl, but like really, it was like nothing crazy. It was like straight 1-2s, like really, really fundamental stuff, but sometimes that's all you need, right? So
one does tend to put on some matches that are just like, really?
I want to look at the record of that other girl.
Are you serious?
Because I just... Where were
and every single fight they'll be like, this person is a world champion. Meanwhile, they like competed in some like local tournament in like Aikido or something.
Hilarious.
Multiple-time world champion, Stampatics.
Stefano and I fundamentally disagree on the the efficacy of ONE FC's promotional campaign. I think ONE FC do a great job promoting.
No, they do a great job promoting things. Are they moral about it? No.
Guys, if you agree with David, go on ONE FC's Instagram browse around for a little bit, and then come talk. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Their Instagram could be better. Their Instagram could be better, but
their Instagram is cringe. It is cringe. One, stop posting cringe.
But when it comes to straight up fighting, like, they hype up the fighters pretty well. The fights are somewhat entertaining. Nowhere else in the world will you see these fights, in my opinion, really, because just like the way like they've set it up. So yeah, I'm a fan. And
one needs to succeed, if for nothing else, than for Muay Thai in small gloves and Giorgio Petrosian.
Well, this is the thing, is that Pride used to be. Pride was a great example of this. Pride could sell ice to a polar bear. They could. The way Pride could sell a fight to you and sell fighters.
Could sell sand to a camel.
Yeah, they could sell sand.
Hilarious! Shouts out to camels.
Right? They can sell bamboo. They can sell bamboo to a panda. Like it was pretty good. I get a delay on my on my camera, so I didn't even hear that joke till like way later.
All right.
So rather than hyperbolizing about ONE FC and Pride's matchmaking marketing skills for like the 10 millionth time, can we get onto the fights that happened?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right.
Wait. We have Jeremy's take. Sorry.
Real quick.
No, Jeremy's take comes after.
That's so.
No, not
Jeremy wants to talk about the Canadian boxer.
Everything else everything else that we talk about is just foreplay for Jeremy's take.
That's true.
No, but this is about the boxing match between.
Yeah, this is the boxing match.
No, just real quick about Michael Zewski, boy from just outside of Montreal. He fought in top ranks. He's actually was ranked number 7 by the World Boxing Organization. He fought in Top Rank's main event last night. Lost in the 8th round by a TKO. But in my opinion, for the first 6.5, 7 rounds, he was winning that fight. It was evenly matched for sure, but he was definitely landing the harder punches. He fought Mean Machine Kavaliauskas. I hope I'm saying that right. Kavaliauskas, who fought Terrence Crawford back in December, and who knocked down Terrence Crawford, handed him his only knockdown in his career, his entire fight, which isn't really saying much because one of the knocks on Terrence Crawford, which I believe too, is that he's only fought cab drivers up to this point.
Wow, that's harsh. I don't know about that.
That's one of the best boxers in the world.
Yes,
man. Like, but skill-wise, Terrence Crawford is nasty.
But to be honest though, like, that's a knock on him. I gotta say, like, a knock on Bud is that he hasn't really fought like crazy competition. But back to the fight last night.
But that's boxing for you.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Errol Spence has only fought who?
Wait, he
Porter?
fought
like Porter and Van Heerden. So
he fought Jeff Horn. He fought Amir Khan.
But Jeff Horn, Amir Khan by that point was a shot fighter, and Jeff Horn sucks.
Right.
Let's get it out of the way. He sucks. Jeff Horn sucks.
No, I agree. Terrence Crawford is probably the best boxer at the moment, but that's more of because of his IQ, like not really because of his competition. But like, look, back to the fight that took place last night. This was a real competition, and Michael Zewski is the real deal. You know, he was touching him up the entire fight, but Kavaliauskas, Mean Machine, lands a mean uppercut in the 7th round, and from that point on, it was a matter of time until. Okay. The thing was paused. I didn't know if you guys were still with me.
No,
I'm with you.
It was just a matter of time until Mean Machine put Zewski away. But look, Mean Machine, this was supposed to be a fight to get him back to facing elite competition, top ranked competition. And, he went in with the right strategy. He was more defensively responsible as the fight went on. So I think it might have came down to a fact of conditioning, maybe. That could have probably been a part of it. But I just felt that Zewski's footwork was better, and he was the slightly more powerful puncher. And I think, he'll probably fall out of the top 10 because of this fight. But I think he can work his way back up to top 10, top even potentially top 5 ranking in the WBO for welterweights. So that was a fight that took place last night. I watch a lot of boxing, so I'll probably come up here and talk about the boxing matches that take place during the week, the ones that I like, and yeah, you guys should check it out too. So
no, please do. I want to get more into boxing, and I had no idea you knew so much about boxing. So
not so much, but I like
content.
I like watching Canadian fighters if they appear in boxing matches. You don't see a lot of Canadian top elite boxers. So
the crazy thing is that this guy, I'm just looking up, Michael Zuski. People are saying, oh, or you're saying like, oh, he's gonna fall out of the top 10. He has a 26 fights. He's I see here 27-2 or 30.
He's currently BoxRec has him right now as 34-2. With obviously the last loss being to Mimashi Kavalaskis. But he beat Alejandro Davila, which is a big win. That's a tough win. And he has a one over Ghanaian Ari Bruce. As I.E. Bruce.
Yeah, 2 Ghanaians actually. Prince Doku Jr. also. Shout out to that guy. Just because he's Ghanaian.
So yeah, no, he's legit. He's for real. I think BoxRec has him
ranked. Fall out of the top 10 because Mean Machine was ranked 13th by the WBO going into this fight.
So, yeah.
It's crazy. He lost to Terrence Crawford and dropped from number 1 to 13.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the rankings kind of make no sense because this guy, you're telling me this guy has a 34-1 record and isn't in the top 10 of his division going into the fight, and now that he's 34-2, he's not going to be in the top 10. And also the other guy who just fought for the title not too long ago is not in the top 10 either. Like, that doesn't make any sense. How are you not in the top 10 with just one loss on your record? But then, anyway.
I don't know.
Different pod. Corruption in boxing. Shouts out boxing, though.
All right. You want to know why we're doing this is because the UFC main event could easily be the weakest card in UFC history.
Okay, name value wise, sure. Might have been a little weak. But, and here's a big but. I thought this card turned out to be fairly enjoyable.
I like the card too.
There was a ton of underdog come from behind but underdog and come from behind wins. There was intrigue. The main event was surprisingly fun, and believe you me, was not super excited for the main event, but it delivered. It delivered more so than I expected. Should we get into the main events? First of all, boxing correspondent Jeremy Asiffo, East Asia correspondent David Agbaire.
That's not
You're not saying his name any like not even at all right.
Close. Keep going.
David's last name is whatever I say it is. Okay. How about that? Yeah. Shall we get into this main event? Because I made some notes, and I would like to discuss them with the good people of the leg kick.
All right, yeah, let's get into the fight. Which one do you want to start with? The Waterson Hill?
Yeah. So I thought from the hop, the first 2 rounds easily went to Hill. I thought she did a great job of just disguising when she was and wasn't going to come into range. From a little just bounce on the lead leg, right? Bounce on the lead leg just to test, draw out that the strikes of Waterson. She loved to throw that cross, that right cross, followed by a left up, like a left kick to the body, coming up on a 45-degree angle. And Hill would just bounce in either with the little tie shifting step that me and Mike were working on the other day, or just bouncing in with the lead leg. And a jab from Waterson would come out, and Hill would slip to the inside and throw an overhand over the top, and would just connect it ad nauseum with that punch. It was beautiful. The first 2 rounds were dominant. I think third round is when, correct me if I'm wrong, Waterson was able to have a little more success with the wrestling. And, man, she made some adjustments. Sorry, go on, Mike. What were you saying?
She landed the takedown in the third, and I think that's where Hill started to get a little gun shy.
Yeah, in the third, she landed a takedown. Hill seemed to be getting a little bit gassed, and I thought another good adjustment she made in the fourth was she switched to I noticed in the early rounds, Waterson was having success when she blitzed, right? Hill would kind of just back up straight. Waterson would blitz, miss the majority of her punches, but land a low kick. But as she started to slow down in the later rounds, the punches on the forward blitz started to land. And then another big adjustment, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Waterson kept switching to southpaw or in the later rounds. And from
a little bit in the first round.
A little bit.
What happened was
Michael, is your microphone off, or is that just...
Mike, you're sounding very quiet, man.
Sorry. Oh, can you hear me now?
It's the exact same.
Can you hear me now?
No, but in the meantime, yeah, she switched to that southpaw stance, and she started slotting in that lead front kick, that right leg front kick, and it was landing to the body, to the head. It was beautiful. The southpaw stance and the forward pressure threw off Hill, and then the fifth round was just wild. That was really anybody's round. I don't think you can call that.
I will say though. Oh wait, am I still not heard?
That's good enough.
Okay. I will say though, Waterson was trying to switch stances in the beginning rounds. I noticed a little bit in round one she was switching. Where I think she was making the mistake was she kept circling to Angela Hill's right side, right? Just kept circling to her left, aka Angela Hill's right. And when she did that in southpaw, it's dangerous to do that. As a southpaw, I know it's dangerous to circle to the open side. And what she ended up doing as an adjustment in the fourth was she would circle to the close side on both southpaw and orthodox. She would just kind of circle just a tad or deep step it to the right, to the open side. And I think that's where Waterson was really finding her success, was just making that small adjustment there. I don't know if you guys can concur, but that side kick was working for her.
That was another adjustment I didn't even pick up on the. It's interesting because me and Mike both have really good minds for technique. We'll watch a fight and we'll come away with, similar things as far as the overall narrative of the fight, but just different details, and that's interesting. I didn't notice that as far as the movement, but now that you mention it, you're completely right. I think as well, Hill got a little more obvious on when she was going to come in, and Waterson kept timing her with that straight down the center again and again in the later rounds. But that was interesting for me. Also, it seemed like Hill was getting out of the way of shots a little slower. What do you guys make of the fifth round? Because I honestly thought that was either girl's fight. I would have been comfortable calling that a draw. I'm comfortable calling either woman the victor, to be honest.
This was one of the closest matches I have personally seen in my time watching the UFC. It was just a good exchange. I thought it was anyone's fight too. I actually gave 1, 2, and 5 to Hill, so I thought that Hill won. I think that takedown was just that takedown in the third round was just so pronounced. That's probably why the fight went to Waterson, but yeah, I thought it was a Hill, to be honest, in my opinion. My humble opinion.
I honestly, I've watched it twice. I don't know. I don't know. My problem with the fourth, can you make an argument that fourth was a 10-8? Can you? Because Waterson was...
Good question.
I don't think it was a 10-8 at all, right?
Fourth was primarily top control, right? From Waterson?
Yeah. Right?
Maybe.
I mean, that's the thing. I wouldn't say so. I would say it's 10-9 across the board. And I think that last round, I think what happened was they took this is the thing about MMA that I think is starting to happen. Starting to allow analytics and stats to affect the judging a little more, which I think is fine. I don't mind. But I think what happened is Waterson landed, I think, 2 or 3 more strikes in the fifth. And because of that, they took a look at the significant strikes, which, by the way, is not very significant in general. But they did take a look at the significant strikes and went, all right, here's the fifth round to Waterson, right? I don't know, but that's my theory.
Do you think the
That
judges
fifth
are
round was so
actually
close. It was
using
razor thin.
statistics to make decisions? Because I don't. I don't.
Say that again, David. I didn't hear
So
you.
I was gonna say, do you think that the judges are actually using statistics to make decisions? Because I actually don't think they are at all.
I don't think
Not
they are.
all
I
the
don't think
time.
they're privy to that information.
Okay, that's fair.
Are they? I honestly, I'm not entirely sure.
No, to
I'm
my
not sure.
understanding,
It's just a
like
theory.
there's
It's just a theory.
an unofficial count, like for the benefit of like the viewer, but then afterwards, like the UFC has a team that goes over like the fights and like actually counts the significant strikes, which counts as the official statistics. But during the fight, like there's no way to tell. And also the idea of significance, like strikes, are also subjective, if I'm not mistaken. So
It's
That's the
very
thing. There's a
skewed.
lot of
It's very
subjectivity in judging in general, especially in close fights. By the way, during the fight, I hear it's just a guy with a clicker. Just like every time he sees a strike, he's just like,
I believe it. I believe it.
like total strikes. They have a total strikes guy and a significant strike. I'm just saying three because like what you're tending to see a lot more of is that like especially in the judging, like you'll see like some of the judge cards that are released is that they correlate a lot to the significant strikes. Like that's what you're starting to see a lot more of. I would love to do like kind of like I wish this is one of the times where I wish we had a news publication or a website because I would love to like actually like make a write up of like
We can
what
still
I've
do
been
that,
noticing.
Michael. We can still do
It's-
that.
I'm just gonna take a really quick look here.
And also, what's going on with your connection?
Yeah, Mike.
Mine?
Yeah, it was breaking up for a second there.
Yeah, is it the rag on Mike time? Is it rag on Mike part?
Hilarious. No, I mean, I actually kind of agree with you, Michael. I definitely think that now, I don't know. It's tough because I don't really have the experience to compare it to what it was like before, but it does seem like more and more fights are being, or decisions made by judges are correlating with like the fight statistic. But I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing or just kind of
Me either. I think
better
I actually
statistics,
think it's a
like
net positive.
yeah, shouldn't
I don't think so.
judge
I don't think so.
decisions correlate with good
I don't
statistics?
I don't think strike stats should correlate with fight
Not
stats
just
because then we're gonna have a situation like we have in amateur
not just
boxing.
Oh my goodness! I don't know why I can't speak today. Not just striking stats, but also like, just like fight stats, like control time or like takedowns. Other things also. I feel like usually when somebody has 4 takedowns versus 2 takedowns, the person with 4 takedowns is more likely than not go. You know what? We should do an analysis of this rather than just making stuff up. But that's an interesting.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's a theory. It's an initial theory. I could be wrong. I do think it's a net positive. Like I do, and maybe not for all stats, but I do think significant strikes is weird because I've been saying that the way they count significant strikes in the UFC is kind of flawed. And it's not measuring like an actual indication of power or effectiveness. It's just kind of like anything that's not a pitter-patter jab is considered significant. And that's
Also, how significant are significant strikes, right? That matters as well.
Exactly, right? There should be a light, medium, and heavy, in my opinion. But I do think though women lie, men lie, numbers don't. And I think that we should be using numbers and statistics more in our judging because then we can say
I don't think I agree.
is more tangible than B.
I don't think I agree, Mike, because sorry, go on. I interrupted you. Continue.
No, because remember, Weili Zhang versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk for me is the example where we sat here and for literally 30 minutes we had an argument where people were literally about to fight each other on the phone because of our interpretations of the fight. I valued Joanna's movement and volume more than the other two gentlemen, Jeremy and David, valued Weili Zhang's power and her straights. So, to avoid those aspects, let's take a look at some numbers. Let's take a look at some fight metrics, right? And I'm not saying that they should be the be-all, end-all, but I do think that if you are taking a look and saying and weighing them into your decision, right, it's a net positive. I'm not saying, and again, I'm not saying be-all, end-all. I don't think
it's a net positive. I'm going to argue in favor of feels over reals in this case. To be quite honest with you, I think as far as the narrative of a fight, there's a lot more that you have to pay attention to than just crunching numbers. We don't want to turn judges into people that are just number crunchers, statisticians, right? Because there's more to it than that, and there's so many factors involved with top control and with other things. I think a better mechanism for getting better fight, and I'm going to lift this straight from Luke Thomas. I actually agree with him as far as something that's practical that can be implemented. In the case of main events, we have the ability to challenge a split decision. I think that's a pretty good, and I think we get more informed judges, and I think that should be enough.
I really like the challenge. I really like the challenge idea, and I'm going to bring that up for another fight, which I'm going to talk about it soon. But
Herman.
Yeah, but I do think there's a marriage.
Yeah,
I do think there's a marriage.
The challenge one, but I just want to quickly talk about the because I actually wouldn't like to see a challenge at all. I think that's a terrible idea, but that's just my opinion. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Statistics in general are not objective, is what I wanted to say. Statistics can never be objective. In order to have a data point, usually you need a human to record it and decide what is a data point, what isn't a data point.
No,
as long as you have that, like, you can never have, like, you know, a fact versus non-facts kind of binary, binary.
Especially in fighting where a guy is measuring the statistics. Now, I hear you. I'm just saying, and look, I'm not saying we have to be like completely numbers and have our glasses up and be like, well, the numbers say that Michelle Waterson landed 35 to Angela Hill's 34 strikes. No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying that we should marry it a little more, right?
I agree, though, and I see where you're coming from, especially considering sports like basketball, which has been a very non-statistical sport beforehand, but now, like, you can't be in like a basketball coaching staff and not have at least a decent understanding of statistics, right? So it does have a place, but I'm kind of with Stefano in this one. Like, there's a reason it's called martial arts and not martial science. Because
but MMA is a competition, though.
Hold on, right? David. I just, while I agree with you, I just want to throw some shade on that argument. If we go by what things are called as a means of defining them like that, I could be like, it's called the Korean Democratic Republic for a reason.
That's true. That's true. And they are Republicans, so you know they're all about freedom, right? Yeah,
exactly. Good red-blooded, freedom-loving racists. Okay, so in the co-main event, this one was a bit of a shocker because I wasn't previously aware of Ottman Azaitar.
He set this poor gentleman prior to this fight into the shadow realm. Like,
so he fought Kama Worthy, who I was aware of, and man, who did Kama beat? He beat a fairly well-regarded. He beat Luis Pena in his last fight.
Yeah, and that was actually a really good. First of all, if I'm not mistaken, I thought it was actually
Violent Barbara.
Shame. Yeah, because I thought, like, if I'm not mistaken, I thought they should have stopped the fight earlier from, like, because I thought Luis Pena. I can't remember what
it was by submission. It was by submission.
Yeah, but it was a weird one in that, like, Luis Pena was, like, dominating. The fight could have got stopped, but it didn't get stopped. And then Kama Worthy came back and, like, got him by submission in, like, the third round or something like that.
Kama Worthy, I would have liked to see this fight play out longer because he's someone whose striking style is weird. He carries his head high. He throws punches from kind of an angle coming up from underneath him.
Yeah.
And he does things that aren't pretty necessarily, but the tactics are there and he gets the job done, and clearly he hits unreasonably hard. But Ottman over here, off of like the third low kick, just threw right-left combination and sent our boy Kama Worthy to the shadow realm.
Yeah, no, he was really tough. He was really tough. I feel, with all due respect, and I don't want to, on any fighters, but Kama Worthy maybe came in thinking he could outstrike Ottman, and that was not the case. I feel like, the broadcast said it best in that it was just landing the same combination over and over again in his, like, 3-2, and I don't think Kama Worthy had much of a answer for that. Do you guys feel like it was an early stoppage? What a boring
thing. You know what? I kind of learned something about mixed martial arts watching this fight, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe Kamaworthy is a good grappler or not. But I learned something like short grappling does have the edge in striking, and when it comes to most situations. But if you're not good at grappling, or if you're not set up in a position, if you're not in a position to take somebody down, then a good striker or a strong enough striker will put you away. Like Commonworthy tried to pull him in and try to do something, and then I can't remember his name, but bro just does the
Ottman.
get your hands off me, 1-2, take that with you, sit down.
But you know what?
I feel like if you're not in a position to take somebody down, a good striker will have the vision to piece you up and put you on your ass. Like
That's fair, and I think that all begins for as far as the good striker with having the ability to control range. And if you can control that range and keep the grappler out of range, it could be a short night for the grappler.
Yeah, because I was gonna say
he just wasn't in a position to do what he wanted to do. Like, what did you say, Michael?
No, I was gonna say there's this new movement where movement is now the takedown defense. Distant management is now the takedown defense. Whereas before, in the olden days in the UFC, that's not what you were seeing. You're seeing a lot of guys get themselves into clinching range, especially a lot of your predominantly traditional Muay Thai guys, and they would get kind of shown the gears there by a strong wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, what you're starting to see is a lot of strikers are coming in with the intention of using their movement and their distance management as their first line of takedown defense. And I'm not saying that's what happened in this fight, but I do agree with that kind of theory where, as a wrestler, you're going to have to clean up the striking in order to, as a means to get down to the takedown. And I think that's where you're seeing guys like Khabib, you're seeing guys like Kamaru, you're seeing guys like even Cejudo to an extent really start to excel. Right?
Yeah, and you know what? We kind of saw this, what Jeremy's talking about, echoed in another fight earlier in the evening, although it's not exactly a one-to-one comparison because Bobby Green also out-grappled Alan Patrick. But I think it's kind of echoed in the fact that Alan Patrick's was kind of obvious with his takedown setups, kind of rushing into range. Really didn't do – what's that?
That's a style, though. I feel like, coming into that fight, a lot of the highlights they showed him kind of jumping into takedowns. And
that's a style in 2015. In 2018, you set up your takedowns correctly. That's all there is to it, my man. But
I saw on a lower level fight, Cody Pfister versus Kyle Prolakek, right, was very similar, right, in BTC, where Cody Pfister all he did was go for a takedown, and Kyle was like, "No, sir," because even though Cody's probably the most credentialed grappler, in 2018, even the guys in the regional circuit and dare I say amateur circuit know how to kind of use their distance management and know how to defend a takedown, right? MMA has been around for damn near 3 decades, so guys are figuring it out.
You guys want to talk about the next one, Roxanne Modafferi versus Andrea Lee? I just want to hit on something very brief.
Sure.
We don't have to go into depth. I just want to say that
this
Roxanne,
isn't that kind of podcast, Stefano, man. I thought this is 2020. Why are you still hitting on women? First, the fighters.
Wait, why are you still hitting on women? Jeez, David, very sex negative. Very sex negative. I didn't know you were a sex negative. All I wanted to say was, Roxanne, cool jiu-jitsu. I love her half guard sweeps and transitions from the bottom, what she does from a knee shield position. If she had an ounce of power in her hand, she could be a contender. But she is just, how John Wayne.
She is so woefully unathletic. It's so sad.
And she's put together a half decent striking game where she, mixes up the timing of her jab and straight punches into low kicks, and that's basically it. And that's, that's all you need when you have that good of a grappling game. But at the same time, it's like, how John Wayne Parr, the name of his documentary was Blessed with Venom, talking about his power. Roxanne Modafferi, I almost feel like the name of her documentary would be Cursed with Feathers. It's just like I feel like
the name of the pod.
In a quiet arena, you still can't hear her strikes landing. But she got the job done, and she's a
against a very athletic Andrea Lee. And
yeah,
that's
she's
kind
a
of
fun
Andrea
grappler.
Lee's.
She's a very fun grappler, Roxanne. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, did you see that hip toss that Andrea Lee hit in the first round? That was cool. Ogoshi, shouts out to my judo boys.
No, look, if you put Roxanne Modafferi's mind in Sijara Eubank's body, then all of a sudden you have I'm serious. Then all of a sudden,
I know. I'm laughing because it's true.
Yeah, then all of a sudden you have probably one of the greatest female fighters of all time. It's just, like,
No, you have Amanda Nunes. But
no, but see, even Amanda Nunes, like her mind tends to get her into like who? Okay, did anyone see her versus Valentina Shevchenko 2?
No,
With
I did years ago.
Okay, Amanda Nunes couldn't figure out a way to get inside on Valentina Shevchenko, like at all, right? And every time she did, she paid for it with her life. But that's kind of Amanda Nunes. She's over reliant on her athleticism, but like she's so quick and has hands about yay long, the entire length of my body that it's.
So what you're saying is you find Roxanne Modafferi so uninteresting that you have to start talking about Amanda Nunes.
No,
that makes sense.
No. The point I'm trying to make is she's just such a smart fighter, but she's just such a not a good athlete.
Yeah.
That, she's just woefully unathletic.
You say woefully unathletic. I mean, she's
David,
still
woefully unathletic.
She has to have at least some kind of athleticism to be out there.
David, woefully unathletic.
Okay, so do you want to talk about the next fight?
Yes, with all my heart.
Quickly,
oh my God!
Want to say something about Angela Hill? She started fighting at 24 because she was gaining weight and joined a Muay Thai class with her husband. Shout out to her, man. Seriously, that's full.
I bet she whoops her husband's butt.
Did you see her husband?
No.
Oh man, Google Angela.
He scares me. Is
he a scary gentleman?
Okay, so this Ed Herman fight.
Oh man. Okay, so first of all, when I saw Ed Herman on the card, it was like that scene from what's that Robin Williams movie? It was like that scene from Jumanji. Like, what year is this? Like Ultimate Fighter 3 veteran Ed Herman. Is this the same?
Was
the
it
very
3?
same?
What's the year that him
3.
and Court McKee got into an argument about something, and then he beat Court McKee's ass?
I don't know about that, but Court McGee came way later. That must have been on a later season of The Ultimate Fighter, but Ed Herman was Ultimate Fighter 3.
For a while.
Short fuse Ed Herman.
Yeah.
Man, okay, so Slow Mike Rodriguez, looking decent in the early going. Very Muay Thai oriented style. I like, light on the lead foot, throwing out teeps to maintain distance to the lead leg, closing in range and throwing those elbows when he needs to. Does a great work with a body shot. Man, I thought that fight was going to be over in the first round when he landed that elbow. To the second round when he landed that elbow out of the tie clinch. Same way he finished his previous fight, but I guess we can't talk about this without talking about the controversy, can we?
Yeah. No.
I just want to quickly say Ed Herman still looked dangerous in certain ranges, right? Still looked like he can throw a punch.
No, he can still go. That's the thing. I'm not trying to say Ed Herman time to retire. He can still go. He definitely can still go.
At 40.
Yeah. Which is some guys do it. That's the thing. Some guys can still do it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I felt like Mike Rodriguez was definitely dominating most of that fight. Honestly, I think the whole knee fiasco pretty much turned the fight, and it's hard to put your finger on these things because you would think if you were winning the fight, you would just continue winning the fight, but maybe Ed Herman got time to catch his breath. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Hey, fighting, David, here's the thing, man, because, logically that's the assumption, but fighting doesn't necessarily follow the rules of logic. Fighting's chaos, right? There could be, because towards the end, even after they resumed the fight, it looked like Mike Rodriguez was very quick on his way to finishing that fight. It looked like that, right? But like I said, it's chaos, and if there's a 1,000,001 chance that you could potentially secure that Kimura from half guard. There's still a chance.
It's funny because as soon as they got into a grappling exchange, it was almost like, wait, why? Like, this is like his one chance to actually stage a comeback. You've been dominating on the feet for the entire fight, and all of a sudden...
Ed Herman was there because he got dropped, too. Like, he got dropped, turtled up against the fence, and then managed to get to half guard. The way he pulled that Kimura out from that... that's difficult. That was artful, man. Switched the angle of the Kimura, pulls in a different direction, and... Oh, man, nasty. His hand... Slow Mike Rodriguez's hand was facing the other direction from his head. What do you think we should do about the result of this fight, guys?
Okay, challenge flag. Just a challenge flag, please. Like, look, and literally, I think this is the problem that people, because MMA is not your typical sport, and it doesn't attract non-sport fans. Like, every time we talk to rappers, Stefano goes into a different room. Like, that's literally a thing. You know, and it kind of speaks to kind of why a lot of MMA fans are kind of adverse to what I'm about to present here. But MMA is a sport. Mixed martial arts is a competition, right? Guys' livelihoods are on the line based on one decision or one bad decision, right? And if the NBA recognizes that and puts in a challenge and puts in a challenge for fouls, mind you, fouls, let alone like, you know, out of bounds plays and things of that nature, then why can't we have one challenge flag for a fighter's corner, to throw the red flag out there and be like, hey, and you know what? We deal with the consequences as they may. If that means a fighter gets a 5-minute break, he gets a 5-minute break. But we keep complaining about these refs not getting it right, and then the one tool to help the refs, they don't get. So it's like, what are we doing here? You know?
So I actually completely agree with you, man. I think we have so much of an attitude now of this, like, sometimes these things happen in MMA type arguments. And yeah, what do we want to figure out here? We're trying to figure out who's the best in the world and try and equalize for, you know, I almost said a dirty non-Christian word. Equalize for you know, these kinds of things, and I don't even blame the referee in this situation. I think anyone could have made this mistake. I'd like to see them run the fight back. I'd like to see it ruled a no contest at the very least, because, you know, I don't think it's right to put a loss on Ed Herman's record, but I'd like to see a rematch, and I'd like to see this ruled a no contest personally. And I'd like to see challenges, the ability to challenge, implemented in the future. Absolutely.
I have not disagreed with something as much as I disagree with what Stefano just said. Wait, what? A no contest?
Hilarious. Shouts out to disagreements.
Man, no way on a no contest. No way. The fight has happened. It's passed. You can't just do that. Unless I don't even like when they do, like when John Jones' last win over Daniel Cormier got like scratched off for a no contest. Even if it was for PEDs or what, I don't even like that. Like,
I don't like that either because it was for
David, these two guys are fighters, so it's different for them. But this does go into an aspect of the sport that I'm not too familiar with, but I kind of side with David here. Like, the fight has happened, and frankly, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Like, you need if
the other thing,
like, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Like, the guy found a way to get 2 minutes. He pulled out his acting card. He became a thespian, and you know, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Like, he found a way to regroup, and he won. Like, the fight.
I will say Ed Herman wasn't out there pretending like he got hit in the nuts until the ref let him believe that, and then Ed Herman all of a sudden, you know.
No, because the ref. If you watch the ref, he's not even like entirely sure himself. He's like, oh, okay, he's obviously hurt, bro. Go back to corner. Like, he didn't jump in there like, hey, stop. No, like he got coerced.
All I'm gonna say, Jeremy, is if you think that if you think Ed Herman is a thespian, then that may have been the quickest somebody's ever changed their gender, especially mid-fight. I think that's a ridiculous assertion. He is not a thespian, okay? But
you know what a thespian is?
I know it's an actor. I'm playing dumb.
Oh,
I'm hilarious.
My IQ is higher than
David too is like,
boo, Stefano, boo. Anyway, Well, oh my goodness, I can't even remember my like actual valid MMA points. Terrible.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I
no,
don't
it
know.
was about the. It was
I don't
about
like this
the.
argument. I don't like this argument that you guys have of,
No. It was about the
like
challenges. No, wait,
No,
hold on.
David.
No, because you guys
Go
are
ahead,
thinking
Let
from,
David.
from
Hold on.
the
Let David.
livelihood perspective.
let the man talk.
Hilarious. No, I mean, I just feel like for challenges, for example, um, okay, so let's say that you throw in a challenge during a fight. Do you restart the fight? Is it like
Yes.
Brazilian
Yes.
Jiu-Jitsu
Well,
where
you don't
you
begin from
you
the beginning. You don't
pardon?
begin from the beginning. There's just a pause, and then you resume the action. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to
Original
see.
spot.
I don't even know that I want to see challenges in the hands of corners because I think that would lend itself to gaming the system
Yeah.
to get rest. I don't want to see that, but I think the referee, as an objective third party, should have the ability to walk it back because I see too many ways for the flag for the coaches to get abused. Maybe a point deduction if they throw it in bad faith,
I like
right?
that a lot. Like if you lose the challenge, a point deduction.
I can get
Like,
a challenge for like a judge's decision, but for like a stoppage, I don't know. For me, it just doesn't sit. It just doesn't sit right to be saying
Sounds
like
like feels over facts, David.
that's true. That's true. That's true.
We
Yeah.
can't go based
No,
on
look,
intuition. We need data. Let's try it out. Let's try it
No,
out in a lower
wait, you
league.
can't just do it based on
No,
no
but
data.
Not in
guys,
the US.
we're talking
We
about
can't
a
do it
league
based
that
on no
cuts.
data. We need to because we need the data because we don't know what the data will speak to. We don't have to try it out in the UFC in a heavyweight title fight, but we can try it out in
I'm down.
a lower league and see what happens.
No,
But
no.
guys, my reasoning is actually a lot more simpler. We're dealing with a league that cuts grapplers after losing 2 straight. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're
Grappler shaming.
right.
It's a real thing.
We're in a league where guys
I've been shamed for being a grappler.
we're in a league where guys
Well, you deserve the shade,
hundreds of thousands of dollars hinge on the guy's win, right? Like, no, I'm serious. Like
No,
in a
I was doing that because David said
Yeah.
I deserve the shame.
Oh, sorry.
I agree. I agree with you. Possibly millions if you take into account the long-term career implications of the matchup you get.
Right. And so, these are decisions where people need to get right. Like, and you see too
I
many
hear
times
you,
there's
but
early stoppages where there's fouls on the play. Like,
when was the
imagine
last time? Hold on. But I hear you. But when was the last time something like this has happened? Dana
2
White.
weeks ago when Daniel Cormier gets thumbed to the eye by Stipe Miocic and can't properly see a right hand for 2 rounds.
Wait, so you think that Daniel Cormier should have challenged that?
Yeah,
Yep.
and then Stipe loses a point, and then all of a sudden the fight's different. Like,
Or that's a good example. I can think of others. I can think of other examples. How about I know I keep bringing this up, but it's just the main one that comes to mind. Dustin Neese tapping out Akira Kurosani with a heel hook. Akira Kurosani does the fake Brazilian tap, as they call it. And then when Neese lets go of the submission, he continues fighting. I'd like to see it. Or how about Alistair Overeem tapping out Stipe Miocic in the title fight? He clearly felt the tap. Let's run that one back.
It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. No, I'm sorry. Like I hear where you guys are coming from, but I just feel like when you start challenging the referee, first of all, the whole point of referees and judges is the finality of their decision. So when you start introducing mechanisms to challenge that authority,
don't complain.
Wait,
Don't
hold on.
complain when they make a bad decision on here every
No,
time.
I've got to challenge that. I've got to challenge that,
No,
David, because
but-
I don't know how you're going to say that the whole point of referees is the finality of their decisions
No,
when
it is.
almost
That's
every
why
other hold on when almost every other sport has a mechanism for challenging these things except ours. That doesn't make sense. There's another thing that I think, again, not to lift arguments directly from Luke Thomas, but Luke Thomas did recommend, all hail Luke Thomas, he did recommend having a second referee, not in the ring, but cage side, in the event of a potential. Sorry, David, I'm not gonna lie to you. Normally,
That's a bad idea.
outside of the cage, just somebody who, in case there's something missed by the main referee, like a secondary official who just stays quiet unless the main referee misses something. That's kind of the thinking there. But David, I got to be honest with you. Normally, your takes are based in, even if I disagree with them, they're based in logic. But it seems like these takes today are kind of based out of just resistance to change, which is
hilarious.
not
No,
familiar
I mean
with.
maybe, but we've seen this happen in soccer, for example, where we had the goal line referee with the idea that if you had a referee on the line, that if you had more referees in the game, then you're less likely to make bad decisions. and that's not what ended up happening. Well, I understand what you mean in terms of other sports having mechanisms to challenge referees' decision. I think it's a case of improving decision making as opposed to actually challenging the authority of that decision.
But like,
David, I'll do respect.
It's been a sport for 3 decades, and for 3 decades, people get it wrong on a consistent basis because it's chaotic.
But
And then we come on here every week and complain like a bunch of children about a call that happened. We gotta stop doing this. I swear again.
This guy just swore.
David, I'll do respect.
Complaining every week and do something about it. Let's do something about it.
That's my point. Let's at least try. Let's get some data somewhere. Like,
I'm down.
As long as because I don't want to base our arguments off of what we think, what we intuit might or might not be right or wrong. Because I'm open to getting some data. Then once we see the results of the data, we can make a conclusion for it, and then we can see who's right here. Because right now we're just kind of spitballing. Also, David, I just want to say it's not the same thing. If you lose a little foosball game, you know what happens? You go home, your dad buys you a milkshake. And it's okay. It's all good the next day. Cristiano Ronaldo, his dad buys him a milkshake. He goes home to his multi-million-dollar penthouse filled with beautiful women and exotic cats, and that's it. It's done. You lose a fight, you could die. It could take years off your life. Okay,
so
don't you dare bring up.
Fight,
I don't want you
still
playing
not die. What kind of argument is that? So if you had won the fight, if you could challenge the fight, all of a sudden you couldn't die. Like,
no,
what?
But like MMA, Dana White doesn't pay these guys the way other professional sports leagues.
That is a separate argument.
Wait, that is a separate argument. But I think my argument holds.
Here's the full logic I'm trying to make here. Right, a win in the UFC changes lives. Ben Askren, Jorge Masvidal is the biggest trajectory of two guys' lives changing off of one win.
That's fair.
Right?
That's
right?
Fair. Yeah.
Lives change to an almost obscene degree based on one or two wins and losses. And we have to get these things right because guys' livelihoods are on the line, especially since the fact that Dana White isn't paying guys millions of dollars to have a fight, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases to fight. Dontel Mays got paid $10,000 for a loss against somebody else, right? Somebody else. I can't remember his name. But $10,000 is what you get in the UFC sometimes.
That's not even on the lowest end. There are people that get paid like $2,000, $3,000, which is crazy when you factor in the cost of training camp and paying your coaches and all these other things, the hidden costs. It's like, are you breaking even?
Yeah. So like this is what I'm trying to explain. One win, one loss is a lot more of a gambit here. And so we have to get these things right in wins and losses because Slow Mike Rodriguez is not making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that one loss, and I know Dana White said he's getting his win money, and that's one case. But what about the other guys?
What are the
right?
Other
hey, let's not forget about his physical health too, right? Like you restart that fight after it should have been stopped. Who's to say that Ed Herman didn't tear his AC joints or his rotator cuff with that Kimura?
No, he could have, definitely. And that's the one thing. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but even then, we would still get these cases. Even then, there would still be an injustice within. And I'm not saying like
so let's get the data.
Let's get the data. I'm all for getting the data, but I just think like the logic of a win is so valuable and I don't think that's going to cut it. I think, or even the whole, like, you should be able to challenge the referee's decision. Like, for me, I'm uncomfortable with that idea because I think you're taking a lot of power away from in the moment decision making, which is the beauty of fighting. So if you start having a referee scared to make it, which happens all the time in soccer now, but that's a whole other discussion. Where a referee scared to make it. I'm just being honest. A referee's scared to make a decision. A referee's scared to foosball. A referee's scared to make a decision, and now all of a sudden they let a play go, and the entire like trajectory of the match or fight or whatever has changed. So,
well, I'm not saying that like.
Can we move on?
Like, but my thing
is. Can we move on? Can we move on?
Sure. Yeah, like we got like 10 minutes left, and we still gotta talk about like. You guys want to talk about the Bellator card?
we can save it. We can maybe do a recap because we've been going for a while. I just quickly we touched on the Bobby Green fight, and I found his grappling fairly impressive, especially against Alain Patrick. And then Kyle Nelson, fellow Canadian,
and Billy. I've been
put on
a
a barn burner.
I've been saying this for a while. Billy Q. I'm not saying Billy Q himself is the type of guy who's going to be a champion, but if you want to beat guys like Alexander Volkanovski, that kind of style, willing grappler, great gas tank, and passable striking is what you kind of need to do. You need to push Alexander Volkanovski in all aspects of the fight. And I've been saying it for a while. Billy Q's for real, and Billy Q's somebody that a lot of people need to get on the hop with. He's only got He's only got 9,000 followers on Twitter. Get him some more followers. He's gonna be big someday. Boom.
Hey, and follow fellow Canadian Kyle Nelson because I thought he is as much as I'm salty about him getting a gift decision against my coach. He is as tough as they come. What he lacks in defensive capability, he makes up for in having just an iron strength of will and an iron head, clearly. And
he's got some power.
It's crazy how these fighters are not popping on IG. Like Michael Zuski only has 1,400 followers on IG, and he's ranked like one of the best in the world.
It's almost like
because it's not about how good you are; it's about how good you can market yourself.
Jeez, man.
So. I just really. Do you want to touch on Bellator, or we can cover it in our pre-fight analysis during the week?
I wanted to talk quickly about the I don't know if his name is Alexei Romanov fight.
My boy Max made money on that one.
Yeah, only because you mentioned him, and also the Jaleel Turner fight. I thought because I like Jaleel Turner and I think he's got a pretty high ceiling. Romanov just wrestled the hell out of with all due respect, one of the least equipped heavyweights I've seen in a long time in the UFC. I mean,
that man got knocked out by Mirko Krokop, the guy he beat.
Roque Martinez?
Yeah, he got knocked out by Mirko Krokop in Risen.
When?
It was Krokop's kind of last run before he had that stroke.
Oh, buddy.
Oh, so that 4-fight win streak where he was killing everybody because he was,
I mean, it's Risen, weird. Mike. They were all juiced. They were all juicy boys.
Was middleweight.
Huh?
I don't want to throw
middleweight. Who is a middleweight?
Roque Martinez is a middleweight.
He's clearly morbidly obese and does not have great grappling. So let's just say it. Let's just say it. Okay, I'll be honest. He's a morbidly obese man without grappling. There.
I mean, to be fair. He had good I don't even know what he covered up really well.
He covered up. He did great. Hey, speaking of which, I think you mentioned Jalen Turner. Yeah, he looked great, man. So much so that I had to stop and make some notes in this fight. Excellent use of hand traps. He managed to drop Brock Weaver with a hand trap the first time. He's got this really cool tendency where they were both southpaw, but he'd use his rear hand almost like a jab. He'd pump his shoulder out to kind of make his shoulder square, and then he could use both his rear hand and his lead hand as a jab, and he was just tagging Weaver. And Weaver, tough as nails, able to get that single leg X guard sweep, which was really cool. But what else? That front kick to the midsection. Oh man, that hurt me. That made me have to take a poop.
Right. Okay. Can I ask you guys a question?
And the finish for Jalen Turner, really quick. It was beautiful. He timed that left straight, lead uppercut, and then as the overhand came, left hook over the top. How many times do you see a knockout due to a 2-punch lead hand combination? That was nice.
Okay, can I ask you guys a question though? Since this fight's brought up, Brock Weaver came in with a lot of fanfare. A lot of people were really high on Brock Weaver.
They're cutting that.
Overrated?
He looked undersized. I'm going to be honest. He looked undersized, and I'm not willing to make that call because I think I'd like to see him down a weight class. He looked like he had some good grappling, and I think Jalen Turner we're going to find out, is a tough fight for a lot of people. I really believe that. I feel like with the kind of sophistication of striking that he showed, he's going to be a problem.
Yeah, no, I think, Jalen Turner is a really good fighter, and you just said exactly what I would say. He's gonna be a tough fight for a lot of people. The commentary was doing a lot of Anderson Silva comparison, but that's just to say he's a solid striker who's long, black, and rangy.
Long and
Man,
black.
see, you know,
He's long and black.
And his name is the Tarantula, so he's into spiders too, I guess.
oh man,
He actually, believe it or not, the commentary team was saying that he has a collection of 200 spiders.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah. In fact, that's why I enjoyed this card. It wasn't really for the fighting; it was really just for the weird facts like that. And yeah, Jalen Turner apparently used to spar with Bisping.
Bisping's like, I used to kick my ass back in the day, if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, no, that's a really nice way to say it, because I don't know. Bisping's striking was not too bad either. But, I mean, to be fair, he was really creative. And, yeah, I just think Brock Weaver, I haven't really seen too many fights that I've been impressed with so far. I'm looking at his. He lost to Jalen Turner, Roosevelt Roberts.
And Roosevelt Roberts is another guy. Where has he, like, what happened to him? Jesus.
Hey, that's the danger with taking a last-minute replacement, man. Sometimes you just get starched by something you don't see coming. That was...
Yeah, no, fair enough, man. They happened to me, so hey, man, I get it.
Anyway, those were all my thoughts on this card. Nothing...
So, really quick, if nothing else, I just want to say that Neiman Gracie with a beautiful heel hook over John Fitch in the Bellator main events. Mwah, heel hooks. I love it. It works.
It's crazy that a Gracie of all people did it.
Yeah, Neiman has some atypical jiu-jitsu as far as Gracies go, and he has some decently polished striking as well. Like, he's not your typical Gracie mold with that stupid front kick and standing completely upright. You know what I mean? He's good. I think championship material in any organization.
Even Kron to an extent is not your typical Gracie, but I think it's because but like the thing about it is Kron's also a Hickson boy. So because of that, it's a different he's obviously different from like your typical kind of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guys, but like Neiman looked good.
John Fitch looked great for a 40-year-old.
Yeah, John Fitch calling it a career, man. Me, I fundamentally remember him as somebody who was unappreciated because his style was, not exactly glitz and glamour. And I'll also remember him as kind of the number 2 to George St. Pierre's number 1, who honestly could have dominated welterweight if it weren't for the existence of George St. Pierre, because for a while it was like, well, what do we do with Fitch? He's beating every other contender who's not named George St. Pierre.
So until he encountered, they shipped him off.
Yeah, until he encountered Thiago Alves and Johnny Hendricks, but that was kind of late career Fitch anyways. But yeah.
I will say with John Fitch, I was thinking about making a video on him, right? About how just underrated he is.
Yeah.
So it's a career that unfortunately not very many casual fans are gonna know about, but he was go if you have a chance and and you want something to put you to sleep, go watch a John Fitch fight. Because besides being bored to death, you're gonna realize the greatness that he did have.
So, is
Raptors time?
Okay, real quick on
Raptors.
Guys, are we 2 hours in?
Yeah, we're 2 hours in. We can do a separate Raptors pod, or maybe we could do quick 10 minutes on Raptors.
No,
then
like honestly, quick 2 seconds.
Hey, I'll do your Raptors summary. Boo hoo, they lost. Raptors suck. Pascal Siakam sucks. Vince Carter sucks. Try again next year. Big deal.
Thank you, Raptors. Forget what he just said. I don't know what he just said, but thank you, Raptors, for an excellent season. And we can do a deep dive later, I guess. Yeah.
No, whatever. I only had 2 questions, really, because, I mean, we all know what it is. We got beaten by a better team. But my questions for you was, number 1, is Pascal even a second-tier all-star like we had thought he was?
Here's what happened. Listen. I think people are simplifying it.
They're hurt.
He ran into Jaylen Brown, who's an all-defensive team player, and I don't care what anyone says. He ran into Jason Tatum, who's a serviceable defender, and he ran into Marcus Smart, who could probably be one of the best defenders in the league.
Yo, did you just say Jason Tatum is an serviceable defender, and that's the reason Pascal didn't score?
No. Jaylen Brown is an all NBA defender. Jason Turner, like every position Pascal Siakam like could possibly exploit, he ran into somebody who's a great defender, and it messed with him. It messed with him, right? So now he's second thinking everything. He's
I thought he could
overthinking.
play the post a little bit more. Personally, I thought he was playing a little bit too much guard play, in my opinion.
Here's the thing. There was a play where he gets to the second level and he finally gets past, I think it was Marcus Smart or Jaylen Brown, finally gets past him. And he can't believe it to the point where he coughs up the ball to Daniel Tice in the second level in Game 7. Like, this is kind of, I just think, honestly, like, he had a good year. It's just he ran into a team that gives him a lot of fits.
His dribble is also not as solid as we had thought.
No.
That's not his strength. He's definitely. I think he should be a post-up shooting kind of player as opposed to a dribbling player. But the second question that I had was Norman Powell. At what point do we stop calling him like a serviceable guard in the NBA?
When he stops being it, because he is a serviceable guard in the NBA.
Okay, but like a starting guard though.
He's not a starting guard, no, but he's a guy who can. He's an overqualified bench player. Like, that's what he is. Like, there's some guys who just are in that. Like, a lot of people like to think it's like, oh, if you're better than a typical bench player, you're all of a sudden a starter. No, there's like a gap in between, and he's in that gap.
Quick question.
Right?
I don't think it's a gap. I think it's more of a Venn diagram. Like, I think it's like you're in that middle where it's like you're better than these guys, but you're not really. It's not really a gap. It's more like I
hear you.
Two follow-up questions. Number one, who's a better player, Austin Rivers or Norman Powell? And number two,
Norman Powell.
Wow.
Norman Powell.
You think so?
Yeah. Norman Powell. Better defender.
Probably.
Better
You think so,
defender,
Stefano?
more explosive.
I love how you said that with so much confidence. I almost believe that you knew what you were talking about. That's
Norman Powell is Colin Powell's son. First of all.
Yes, that's true.
that tells
Is he
me
actually? David, is he actually?
Yeah, no, he's related to Asiffo as well.
half of being right is
Are you trolling me right now?
Yes.
Colin Powell. Thank you for getting us into the war in Iraq. Not us, because Canada didn't go. But
yes, we did.
no, we didn't go. We didn't go to Iraq. Are you crazy?
Oh yeah, that's
We went
true.
to Afghanistan.
Let's just make the switch. Let's just turn into a political podcast.
That's so true.
Let's
Thank
make
you,
the switch.
Jeremy. Thank you.
If it turned into a political podcast, it would be me and David berating you about trans rights and why we don't need religion.
That's true. That is so true.
On a Christian podcast.
I have one more.
Can I get a trans
Raptors
rights?
question. I have one more Raptors question. Oh goodness, I've forgotten it. Whatever.
Not important. It's okay.
Jeremy's take.
Quick
time for
5
Jeremy's
minutes, top
take.
stories about the NFL.
Can you make it top one?
Jesus.
Wow. Man.
We're like 2 hours
like-
in.
Like
Your
a
own
podcast,
kid, Jeremy.
like a podcast, my minutes are slowly being cut out. So
Yeah.
one day you just might come on and realize that I've been fired from the show.
Yeah.
Um.
From the family, not even from the.
Okay,
pod.
fine. Okay,
Well,
fine.
Mike tried to disown him as black last week, so I mean.
That's not what I. That's not. what
Yeah,
happened.
that's what you
Guys
said.
are-
You said
guys are-
if you like country music, then you're not black.
That's not what I said. That's
Wow.
Basically.
not
Hey
what
man, I told Jeremy we'll welcome him to the Italians.
All right. Look. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
That's it.
All right.
We got
top one.
better food anyways.
All right. Top one.
Oh, okay.
Look, I'll say one word. I'll say one word about the other things. Number 5, Dak Prescott and Dallas Cowboys. Number 4, how the NFL deals with COVID. Number 3, which QB will emerge as future face of the league? Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, or Pat Mahomes. He's in the league right now.
Hey,
Isn't it already Pat Mahomes?
No.
I have
No.
a suggestion.
No. That's what they want to say, but all the football aficionados know that it's still a race. It's still a race.
What are you talking?
It is.
Guys,
It is.
can I-
It is. Pat
quick
Mahomes-
suggestion.
Pat Mahomes, guys. Sorry.
Quick suggestion. I'm hungry. I want to go.
All right.
Can we record Jeremy's take with the next episode, the preview episode for UFC Kobe versus Tyron? Because I want to give it. These sound like interesting topics, and I want to give them their justice. Some about
Fair
justice.
enough. Fair enough. The NFL and how they deal with COVID is actually kind of interesting.
That's important, and Jeremy probably has an interesting opinion on this, and I don't want to just kind of, squirt it out towards the end like
All right, fine.
some kind of gas station.
But I just have the headlines. You guys just want to know the headlines?
Do the headlines. We can get into them.
All right. Just quickly, David, a quick rebuttal. Pat Mullins has an embarrassment of riches. That's why it's still a race. Tom Brady and Belichick's first season apart, and social justice in the NFL. That's it. That was my top 5.
Man, I wish we actually got to that and didn't spend like 80 years on Ed Herman versus
That's so funny. On challenges.
Yeah.
Or how long did we spend on like the first hour before even getting to the fight?
Dude, or Roxanne Montberry, which Stefano missed, like, it was late for the podcast because
hilarious. Oh man.
Girl Roxanne, you don't have to put on a red light. You just have to get some power in those strikes. Guys, stay tuned. We've got some big things coming up from the Leg Kick. We got some big announcements. I don't want to say them till they're official, but I'll say one of them. We have 2 big guests, both heavyweights, both big metaphorically and big in stature, coming onto the Leg Kick podcast. I'll tell you the one that's confirmed. Butterbean is coming on the Leg Kick podcast next Thursday.
Hey!
Butterbean!
Hey.
Butterbean, legend of MMA and boxing, involved in some of the greatest fights of the previous generation. A man who was supposed to fight Mike Tyson. A man who knocked out Johnny Knoxville. A man who is synonymous with the knockouts. It'll be a pleasure to talk to such a storied and prestigious athlete such as himself. The other one, we'll let you mull over it. It's a heavyweight. It is definitely a heavyweight. And another couple things. Guys, are we back in studio for the next one?
Probably.
Let's do it. Let's call it. We're back in studio. The Leg Kick podcast, where we were. It was meant to be all along. It's where we were supposed to be. We're coming back home. It's been a long road. It's been tough. We've been through potato cameras. We've been through my dog walking around in the background and the squeaking toys. We've been through Jeremy having an Omegle camera set up, looking like he's performing public indecencies. But we're back. Trust me, I'm back.
I'm pleasuring myself to that beautiful beard you got there, buddy.
Oh, baby. Is this a Christian podcast, or are Christians inherently repressed homosexuals?
Is that you can count on me to pleasure myself.
With that being said, guys,
recording,
Huh?
Yeah, more bedroom talk later. With that being said, guys, subscribe, like our videos. We got a whole back catalog of content.
Delinquents.
We're putting up all kinds of good content. Mike just released a controversial but very interesting video on Valerie Letourneau. I always get her Laredo. I always get her mixed up with Valerie Letourneau.
Let her know.
We always love doing this for you. So much so that we've continued it through a pandemic. Let us entertain. Let us entertain you. And with that being said, Mike, to play us out, what does that mean?
All right, well, I would say that in this crazy messed up world, but actually, you know what? It was a pretty good week this week. I kind of enjoyed myself. So, in this good world, just remember.
Did you enjoy yourself as much as Jeremy on camera?
Yes, I quite did. All right, but in this crazy mixed up world, remember, you got 3 things. You got life, you got family, and you got this podcast.
And you got Roxanne Modaffari's fights.
Oh, and Roxanne Modaffari's fights. Stay safe, everybody. God, she's so unathletic. I love her, but she's just not really an athlete like that.
Me too, man.